One of the worst things that a product manager can do is to fall in love with their product. How do I put it? It's just as that old slogan, just say no.
How you get from an idea into a finalized product, right? One of the tools for teams to do that for a long time has been Agile. Is it the holy grail?
No.
Standing on Mindera's yellow box in this episode is product owner Maria João Correia. Having worked at Mindera for over a decade, MJ's role involves identifying market opportunities and planning and executing the end-to-end product development lifecycle. In this episode, she discusses optimizing the product journey, balancing inspiration and research, the importance of user feedback, and more.
Welcome. We've been in Mindera together for a long time.
Yes.
And a couple of adventures, different clients, different products. But let's focus on your journey, your story. So I think you've built a lot of different things, a lot of different products, web, mobile, a bunch of different things, right? So interesting on focusing on that. At Mindera, we have like a normal journey to a product, right? Sometimes when we kick off with a client, we do something called Sprint Zero, right? So let's start by that, which is zero. What is a Sprint Zero?
I wouldn't start with the Sprint Zero when we are talking about the road from idea to launch. Before the Sprint Zero part of the journey, which is actually already a tool for product planning, there might be a previous phase, but depends on the context of the product that we are building, even the client we are working with. But the discovery phase encompasses the market analysis, and that is about understanding the market, understanding the users of that market, and also the strategic planning of the product, which involves understanding how we can capture the value of the product that we are building. But normally, in our context, let's say that we start with a client that already has done, or even us together with a client, have already done that strategic planning or that market analysis. In the part of the product planning, we already start sharing, ideally with the whole group, with the whole team that will be part of building that product, sharing first, making sure we establish clear goals for the product that we are building, understand and share what are the problems we are trying to solve, and I think that's the key thing to start with before building the product. Understand what is the customer's problem, what is their journey, what are their profiles, and what segment of that market we want to attack with this product, and based on the problems that we are trying to solve, then start discussing the technical and making the technical decisions that will allow us to achieve those goals and to solve that problem for the customer.
We're very used to see movies, romanticized versions of, like, I don't know, Facebook is a movie and so on, where you got a bunch of geeks, I say that in a good way, get together and just write code and have an idea and have zero tests of market. They just have an idea and they go to market with it and test it. How far is that from reality?
It is, in my belief, as you say, very romanticized, and we are talking about some inspired geniuses that but it's true. That's also an important part of having an idea and creating a product. But if you notice and if you look at all those cases with Facebook and even with Steve Jobs, who was very inspired and created products that no one knew they wanted. But if you look at the essence of all those journeys, it's about knowing human behavior, understanding people's needs, understanding people's problems on a daily basis. But just then the difference is that they had creative ways of finding finding ways to solve those problems and to address those problems in a way that wasn't conceived before. And I saw a movie recently, very interesting, not about technology, but it was about the guy who created and brought to the chips, the Lay's group, the flaming hot flavors. And I think you will relate a lot with that topic. But it's about he was a janitor in the factory, and he in a time where sales were down, he made a lot of, let's say, user testing with trying new recipes and new flavors and bringing the spicy flavor into chips, Doritos, Lay's, etc. He had a vision, but what that vision was based on his knowledge of his market and his community and the flavors that people wanted but didn't exist in the market. And he actually made all the process that we know today about researching and user testing and experimenting without having a college degree, without anything.
If you have kind of a level between intuition and vision of a product, and the other side is data driven, just raw data that you just take care of, where do you think kind of the best outcomes come from?
We cannot separate one from the other, because I would say inspiration may be the trigger and may be fueled by your own experiences, your ideas, your knowledge, but then bringing that idea into life requires a framework, a methodology to validate if what you think will actually be applicable or will be monetized, and you can really actually make it a product and make money with that product.
I think a couple of years ago, I think MVP was a strong keyword. Everybody said, okay, we need an MVP, test the market and go. More and more I hear MLP, as in, so MVP as in minimum viable product, MLP as in minimum lovable product.
And you have another minimum marketable product in the middle.
So there's a bunch of keywords now, but that means that there's some kind of shift here, right? So the perception of an MVP is not enough, starts to pop up. Do you agree with that vision?
I believe that the MVP stage would be part of the phased rollout and even part of the validation side of the product. Of course, that when we start ideating and solutionizing a product and prototyping, that's already a pre-validation phase. But then the MVP launch is still in the realm of validating the product, the idea, and how users adopt or not, to make decisions either to continue growing the product or pivot and change to a different thing. But then when you reach that phase of validating and you know, or you start confirming or not that your assumptions were right, then you start going into the realm of growing the product and making it more robust and making it so that people will love it, and then you go into the minimum lovable product. So something that it doesn't give you only the basics, but also something that will help with acquiring more customers and retaining customers and providing a really great experience.
It will be enjoyable, not only a solution.
Exactly.
For an established brand that has a lot of customers and is launching something new, do you think normally they are willing, or do you believe in risking launching something which is at the MVP stage? Because I think that's a lot of the time a struggle, right?
It's something that occurs frequently, because sometimes a company is afraid to, by launching a product, losing some of the key features or not having parity with an existing product. But at the same time, I think, again, based on data that might or should be available, maybe it's the time when a product reaches, in the product life cycle, reaches maturity. If we want to kick off a new growth phase, then it's the time to question everything that is already in production or in use, because all the features that we are trying to build parity with, maybe they're not as valuable as we think. Just because they exist and they are available, maybe we can question if we really should keep that parity or drop some features and build new ones that depending on everything, on the user feedback, on data that we have that can show if some of those features are used or not.
How much of the roadmap of product should be driven by user feedback?
I think user feedback, user research, that sort of qualitative data is one of many inputs that we can take to use for growing our product and understand what can be improved or yeah, I think it's one of many.
There's that catchphrase that the user is always right.
Yeah, okay, I see.
How much of that do you agree with?
Users or clients or customers are always right in their perspective, in expressing their needs. But I think the point is how we interpret those needs and how we must go into the core of what people are saying and why people are saying that and transform that information into a solution. Not necessarily translate directly what they are saying, like, I wish there was a button here that could do that. Not necessarily like that, but understand why, what are you trying to do, what are you trying to achieve, what are your challenges, your pain points, and then how can we solve that in a way that is consistent with the product and has a good user experience and not like translating exactly what they are saying. Yeah.
Is that where some of the times A/B testing and so on follows?
It can be if the product that we are working with has enough scale that can allow us to really extrapolate that data and do that sort of analysis at scale. Yeah, that can be a way. The other way I was mentioning, if we look at user interviews are more one-to-one basis and understanding more the why of why people are saying that, what's the struggle, and not exactly just aggregated data about one feature usage.
Is the road between a client that has a clear path or a clear idea on what he wants to build, and one where we kind of end up and they ask for our help, like, where should we go next?
Yes, I see. So there are different journeys that we can take with clients or within a company that is developing a product, which is the last one that you were saying is about the productizing focus and taking an idea from scratch and help the client go through all the process up until launch and so on. The other scenario that you were describing is more focused on the delivery of something that had already analysis and research and a vision statement, and it's more focused on delivery and on the operational side of the product planning, etc. But often, at least in my experience, even in those scenarios, it's very interesting to see how often we have to take a step back and go back into understanding why we are doing this and help the client maybe not rethink but make it clear about the product strategy, because even if they come to us with a predefined idea, maybe it's not that mature and we need to work with the client taking that step back and helping before actually starting to design and develop, implement and plan the launch, etc.
That might be an unexpected step for them because they probably kind of are thinking, okay, we know what we're going to build it and we question what other unconventional topics or ideas have you gone through that you think are valuable in this world?
One of the worst things that a product manager can do is to fall in love with their product, because often even within a development team or within either the product designers and developers themselves, when we start building together something from scratch and take it to launch and see it grow and see it have good results, it's easy to be attached to it. And sometimes jokingly people say, oh, it's my little baby. And if you think it's not your little baby, it's not something that you should be attached to, because if you are attached to it emotionally and not rationally, you will tend to make mistakes in terms of evaluating if you should keep going through that path because it was your assumption and you really believe that it will work.
You become biased.
You become biased, yes, and it's really important for the sake of the product itself and the work that you do and the health of the team to be rational about it and look at data and look at all the information that you have available to make the best decisions.
Do you think a product manager is better suited when they have deep technical knowledge or business acumen?
The key is for the product manager to have first knowledge of the market they're operating in. I think that's very, very important, of course. And business acumen, as you were saying, so being able to understand the business and how to have a product that will benefit the business goals, and also have enough technical understanding, whatever that is, whatever the industry is, technical understanding of how the product is built, because that will help the product manager and the team and the connection with the stakeholders for the manager to make the right decisions, because they understand what's involved in building the product. I don't see, let's say, traditionally product and tech being two different things. I don't think they need to have deep technical knowledge, because they will enter a realm of decision making that it's not theirs, it's from the technical team. And you understand, even when you are having discussions with the team in refinements or whatever, about how do you define the priorities. And there's some, let's say, technical debt to be addressed. If you understand what's the importance of solving that technical debt and what impact it will have in the product, it's better, it's valuable to understand that and to compare that effort that needs to be taken against other possible priorities. Yeah.
What's a product manager for you? What's a product owner? Is it a different thing?
I think that also it's a really interesting and potentially contentious question.
That's why I love about that.
Yeah, but if you think about it, there are different roles and different levels of responsibilities for product people within an organization, and the way that those are structured depends on the size of the organization, right? The size of the teams, how complex or not are the products, and then that also relates, what you call them, relates more to the culture of the company and the framework that you are using, because product owner traditionally came with the Scrum framework.
Yeah.
But the responsibilities exist from within the productizing process. Strategic planning, market analysis, product planning, then focusing on delivery and go-to-market, all that. And those functions can be distributed by different people or not, depending on the size of the company, how much money they have to support such teams. But also, and then the naming, how you call them, depends on the culture. Like you can have traditional namings like director, head, or principal, or then you can have the ninjas and the visionaries and all those, depending on the culture. And what do they mean? Sometimes they don't mean anything. So it's just important to understand what are the roles and assignments of each person within the flow, and then you can name it whatever you want.
If we're going into contentious topics, let's go into AI. What kind of tools do you use? How useful it is? Any stuff from AI on your day-to-day?
On a day-to-day basis, it's very useful. For example, to work to define even simple things like helping with the right copy for certain piece of the product, or even documentation, or as a summary of best practices. And if you want to have a summary of structured workflow for something specific that you want to do, or even as a learning tool, it can be useful to facilitate that process and save time in terms of researching some piece of information. I think it's very useful. But in terms of how I would see things evolving in a few years, from what I know now, I think it can become it's maybe already becoming a very useful tool for product managers to facilitate with considering the body of knowledge that already exists in product management. It can help us build frameworks to facilitate the productizing process. For example, when you want to do something, some phase of going from an idea to launch, often you won't reinvent the wheel, right? There are already methodologies and things that you can apply from the research that you want to do, from building business cases, or doing some market research. Then I think with AI we will potentially have structured tools that can help us with that, instead of starting from scratch and reinvent new ways of doing the things, that instead of using something that already exists and already is validated. So I think it can become a really precious tool to facilitate with day-by-day activities, and leave product managers or product people to focus on the human side of things, on things that I think it will be very hard for AI to replace, but are the things that are more valuable from a human perspective.
So you mean that you'll write into an AI LLM something like, write me tickets to build this product and translate this into developers in the way that they will understand.
For example, it could be something like that, because then the creative side of the product management work and the interaction that you need to have either with stakeholders, with the team, designers and developers, etc., or with users, all that, I think it's hardly replaceable with AI tools and frameworks. But everything else that is more operational can be facilitated with AI. So people can focus on the human and the maybe the most interesting part of the work.
We leverage a little bit now into tooling, but we're talking about how you get from an idea into a finalized product, right? And one of the tools for teams to do that for a long time has been Agile. What do you think about that? So how is it? Is it the holy grail?
No. As in life, I'm not for anything that is considered to be like a dogma or something that we should look up to as a holy grail, and that is applicable to every scenario possible, because that doesn't exist. I don't think any framework is a holy grail for anything, and there is no magic formula that can be taken and applied in all contexts, in every context possible, because people are different, organizations are different, their dimension and the resources and the market they operate in is different. So there is no tool, no framework that can just be applied and will work for every context. I think the important thing is to look at the different frameworks, different ways of working, understanding what are their benefits, and then be able to look at our context and apply some of those tools, either the whole, I wouldn't say never the whole framework, but bits of the framework, and the things that are already validated and work and apply them to our context, but being able to identify maybe this bit is not actually helping, is only creating entropy.
If you go into companies like Facebook or other tech like that, at least from my awareness of several teams there, they have no such methodologies in place. That's considered a little bit bureaucracy.
Sometimes forcibly applying that framework just because it's the trend and okay, we know this works, so let's just apply it and things will work out magically. I think it's becoming sometimes a heavy bureaucracy and bringing more entropy than benefits. So yeah, and I think we shouldn't fall into that trap.
Now that you've died for some of the product people,
let me just add, if it works, if people are happy and performing well and have a great team environment with those ceremonies, then yeah, go for it, because that's what we want.
I was messing around with you. You're building a product. How do you manage short-term feature requests and long-term strategic vision for a product? Can you give kind of simple examples on how do you address those two things?
Let's say that you reached a moment when you've launched the MVP, right? And so you've done the basic to get the product out and start testing your assumptions and see how it's performing. And in that journey, on the way, as you know, we often cut some corners to reach a reasonable time to market and launch, etc. And then it's time to take a step back and make sure you stabilize the product in such a way that is strong enough to support the next phase for the growth phase. And then again, there will be a lot of conflicting requirements or potential ways to move forward into that growth. So, for example, I think it's useful to have an impact matrix where you evaluate effort against impact of what's something any feature can have, and you can take any of those potential improvements or needs that the product has to evolve and understand for each one what's the effort and what's the impact, and then go from there and see what are the quick wins, things that will have a high impact and low effort, or something that is in the other quadrant that are big features that will take a lot of time to build or might take a lot of time, but then they will have a great impact, and then the others that no impact or low effort or high effort with no impact. So you can have a way of easily visualizing and compare one feature or one piece of work against the other.
Has it happened that you kind of advocated strongly for something within a product, like a decision or so on, and then actually it went, I would say, really bad, but it didn't went the way that you wanted, and how you dealt with that?
Looking at the product management function as a whole, not just with the product itself, but in the process of understanding what the problems are and use that information to understand, to aggregate that information, and what decisions can be made to prioritize those improvements. It was in a context where we had an idea of creating a framework to for a specific client that had, let's say, 10,000 contacts from customer support, and that information was captured by email. So customers would reach out through email with their problems, and every day there was, let's say, 100 or 200 new emails to express what the problems were. And there was a lot of valuable information to be taken from those emails to understand what are most important pain points of the customers, what are the biggest problems of our product, and those can be categorized. And initially, it was relatively easy to manually categorize all those problems, like if it's with login or if it's with the infrastructure, like we have API errors, or it's with a purchase step or whatever. It's easy to categorize, but when you start receiving 100, 200 a day, it starts to become unmanageable. So we had an idea to, with using the context that we already have with the manual categorization, using AI to giving it that context, just to simple text categorization, and with each new email that come in, with all the information that was not categorized yet, to use that LLM to categorize and aggregate that information, and use it as a regular tool to easily capture that information that we have from the clients. And really, it was amazing to see, with a small subset of the context that we have, for every new email that we have, how accurate it was to categorize the problems based on free text that was sent by the customer.
I think you're coming to a but, right? And now I'm curious.
No, the but is that implementing that, putting it live, and connecting it with the customer support systems has some cost.
Right.
Not huge, but has some cost. What I think was frustrating was that that specific set or organization could, I don't know if it was they couldn't see the value of that information, or if it was the different departments were working in silos, so that the product management function was only focused on their specific bit of product and not in the whole experience of a customer that reaches out to the company and uses different products within that company. And I think that was the frustrating bit, and what I think was missing, and probably I couldn't make the group see how valuable that would be, not only for the product I was working with, but also for the whole process that with which the customer interacts. But I was really happy with the results of that research and that work that we did, and hopefully it can be used in the future in a different context.
As a company grows, it tends to grow silos within. So you start losing awareness of what's happening in other silos, because you can't keep up with everything that is happening. So this tends to happen. But then, as you were exposed to different sets of information, different contexts and so on, your opinion is shaped by that. And then where you want to go, and different opinions pop up from different silos. How do you cope with those? Like, how do you cope with really different points of view popping up, where, like, ideally you'd see, like, this is one product, we should all be kind of agreeing to something.
How do I cope? It's just as that old slogan, like, just say no. No, I think one of the key skills of the product manager is their ability to say no. Given I see so often the product manager as the orchestrator of many things, it's important to look at all the different inputs and feedback and even requests, depending on the context that you are working, of something that can help you evolve the product, and balance all that information. And here the skill, I think, is to learn how to best navigate in these scenarios within an organization, and how to manage and interact with stakeholders, with the team, and with everyone. At the same time, make people feel and reassure that they're involved in the process and their opinion is valued, but then being able to aggregate all this information, make the right decision, and that means sometimes saying no to a lot of people. And that's the magic, and that's sometimes the beauty of it, is to how to navigate these waters and steer the boat into its destination.
We mentioned a lot of user research, analysis, data, and then some vision. But when we talk like this, it seems like there's some very intelligent people on the top, on the product side, kind of say where we're steering the boat to, right? But there's a lot of people just rowing at the development, design, and so on. Those people also have an opinion. How do you manage, like, you have a stream of information and decision coming from, I'd say, above, because in terms of the chart of organization, normally product is above.
That's it.
How do you manage that without the team, even, I'd say a strong word, with resisting or opposing an idea from product and saying this is a bad idea or we think we should go left?
The challenge exists in many organizations, but I think that reflects sometimes a problem with the organization itself, because if you look at all the some essays or studies about innovation, there's not like one innovator at a company that makes the company innovative. Innovation has to come from, has to be embedded in the organization itself and in its culture, and make sure everyone involved in building something is able to share their voice, their opinion, and their ideas. And that's often where most innovations come from, right? It's not that we have one person that is the genius and the person that knows it all and drives the innovation from top down. That's not how it works. And if we don't foster that cooperation, that collaboration, and the sentiment of everyone being involved in the process, we will kill the innovative spirit of a company.
So for people within the development, design, and so on, to be able to propose good things, they need to get enough information to understand where we're going.
Exactly, yes, and that's important. It goes both ways, and in that sense, for product people to make sure the vision and the goals of the product are clear for everyone, and we know where we are heading to, and everyone is aligned with meeting those goals, and even challenge those goals, and depending on also what people are interested in doing, because you might have some team members who are just there and are just interested in the tech side of things and the technical challenge and on the how and what to build, right? But you may have others who want to go beyond that and understand also the market, the users, and be a bit more creative. So it depends on also the people that you have on the team. But it's important for everyone to be aligned under the same goals and everyone to have an opportunity to help build the best product possible.
So what do you think is your biggest challenge?
I think people are quite challenging in general, yeah, because the other sorts of challenges, the analytical ones, the creative ones, and the interaction, discussing ideas and solutionizing things when we are at that stage, that's the greatest part and the most interesting one. And those are good challenges to solve. This is when the interaction becomes challenging because of different personalities or different perspectives or insecurities that some people might have. I think that's the most challenging bit, is managing or dealing with people.
What's the biggest misconception people have about your work?
In early days, I think the biggest misconception was about the focus of the product manager being similar or conflicting with the project manager, right? And more in terms of the managing a project, and they did the same things, and I think there was a misconception there. But I think nowadays it's the function has grown so much and is quite
everybody's
established.
aware that
Yeah.
your work is to write tickets. That's it, right?
Yeah, in the early days there was that as well. Yeah, just write tickets and move cards in Jira and so it's,
But then
and be in meetings also. It's being
but
in
then
meetings.
you have Scrum Masters, and then you get confused. Like, then what's the Scrum Master doing?
Exactly.
What is the biggest ethical issue now?
I think there might be ethical challenges depending on if you operate in a market that somehow might go against any of your personal values. If you're a vegan, you are working in, I don't know, in a product to sell meat or something like, could be something like that. Specifically in technology, when you develop products and you work in environments that might trigger behaviors in your users, in people, that you might think about as being negative for the society itself. You never know with the tracking that exists and how products are made to make people become addicted to that product, whatever that is. That I would say that could be an ethical issue, but it depends on how you face it and how you face people's behaviors itself. Are people actually responsible for what they do, as long as you build in ways for people to protect themselves if they fall into a trap? Maybe the only thing I ever felt an ethical issue was when I was working with a specific client that and a group of stakeholders. It didn't end up not happening, but there was a chance that I was going to work with a specific group of stakeholders that were from the Middle East, and from their perspective, they would never interact and meet with women. In that sense, if that came to happen with my team, I already thought that if that happens, I will make sure to leave this or that project, because I could not accept a work environment where that could be even reasonable. So maybe that was the only time that I had a slightly ethical conflict with work. Yeah.
Let's kind of wrap with one last question. What do you think is a product category or industry that is ripe for disruption?
I have a vision, not sure if it's a vision more based on what I wish it could be in the future, but looking at the way that our society is evolving and how, at least let's consider, to simplify the argument, in Western societies where people are aging and we tend to have, fortunately, longer life expectancy. One of the things that I see and I wish would happen is within biotechnology, developing products in a market that I think will grow, and I hope it does, that will enhance the experience of a human being, and products that exist to facilitate and help the human experience as an extension of our physical life. Everything that can help either with disability or cognitive disabilities, etc., or not, or just to facilitate as we age, as we have different challenges, having more products that will help with that will make our lives better and we have better quality of life. And I would see that as a growing market that can be disruptive to what exists nowadays. Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you. Do you want to clap to wrap this up?
Sure.